So what is the Learning Covenant? The Learning Covenant is an explicit agreement between you, the student, me, the professor, and other students concerning your involvement in the class. It sets down the formal requirements for your participation in the course. It also lists the learning objectives that you'll seek to achieve, the activities that you'll perform to meet those objectives, and it explicitly identifies the criteria which will be used by me to evaluate your learning. It has the following advantages over more traditional methods of evaluation. 1. It allows for greater flexibility and freedom on the part of the individual and the student to select those activities which you think or you find most interesting. It also states everything clearly and explicitly so that there's no confusion or ambiguity about what's expected. And finally, it also offers and allows you to take opportunity to take responsibility for your own learning. Now, we both know that this is a required core course, and some of you wouldn't be taking the course otherwise, unless, of course, it fits your schedule and the like. But it is a core course, and Lemoyne College has certain objectives they require for the course to achieve, which I have to honor. I also have some of my own objectives for the course and for your involvement. The combination of these objectives constitutes the course objectives that you find on the syllabus and which every student must meet successfully to pass the course. However, learning is about more than meeting someone else's requirements. Learning's a lifelong adventure that contributes to our development as mature, responsible person in relationship with others. The Learning Covenant is a means to enhance your potential as lifelong learners. That's why, in addition to course objectives, you have the opportunity in this course to meet objectives you've chosen based on your own interests and needs. Now, before deciding on your learning needs, before you decide your learning goals, you need to look at learning needs. Now, what is a learning need? A learning need is a gap between where you are now and where you want to be in relationship to certain competencies or abilities. Now, these can relate to knowledge or understanding, skills, attitudes, values. It doesn't matter. For example, you want to learn more about your own or other religious ethical traditions. Do you need to enhance your analytical writing or public speaking, listening, or discussion and leadership skills? Are you interested in appreciating the diversity of religious moral arguments on sexuality? Clarity about your needs or your interests can help you to be more specific about what objectives you'd like to pursue in the class. Once you figure this out, you're now ready to list your own learning objectives. Now, learning objectives are a clear and concise statement that defines specifically what you want to learn. They should describe what you will learn in terms most meaningful to you, not what you will do to learn them. Look at the examples I provided on my own course objectives as well as on the sample learning objective, learning covenant that I have provided on Canvas. Clarity is important, for these objectives provide the basis for the final self-assessment. You can write as many objectives as you want to related to what you're trying to do in the class. Once you've listed your objectives, you'll need to describe how you propose going about accomplishing them. I provide a list of activity options, and you can click and see where that is, from which you can select to meet your objectives, or you can identify your own. The key is to make sure that the activities you select help you to meet your objectives. For example, an objective to improve your ability to write analytically may lead you to write 3 focused thought papers. An objective to learn more about social justice may lead you to engage in an analysis of a social justice organization. Accomplishing your learning objectives fully may lead you to engage in more than one learning activity. Once you've identified your activities, write them on the covenant in the space provided. Next, you'll have to give evidence that you have achieved each objective. For example, evidence that you learn more about social justice might lead you to do a collage and write a report about what you've learned. Evidence you have a clearer understanding of Buddhist views of sexuality may lead you to a class discussion on what you have heard. The list of activity options that I provided includes evidence associated with each of those options. However, you can select one of those options but offer different evidence to demonstrate your own learning, and you would write the evidence in the space provided on the covenant. After you specify your evidence, you need that for each objective, you have to specify the criteria which the evidence will be evaluated. Now, make sure that they're appropriate for each objective. On my document analytical activity options, I provide evaluation criteria for each of those activities. Their criteria I'm suggesting are appropriate to determine the quality of the project. Now you can make changes to those criteria in your covenant, but we'll have to negotiate any disagreement. Only the evaluation criteria listed with each objective may be used by me to determine the quality of your evidence, and ultimately a grade. You should pay careful attention to them when completing them. It's also possible to have persons other than or in addition to me to evaluate your work. If you choose to do this, then you must state what their qualifications are and how they express their judgments, for example, ratings, scales, grades, etc. In the final column of the covenant, you have to identify due dates for each learning activity. I've selected due dates for the activities I require, but you're in the best position to determine when you have time to complete the activity you choose. Just remember, feedback's essential to learning. You'll receive more feedback from me the earlier you complete your activities. Waiting till the end of the semester limits your chances for constructive feedback. Also, even though you've set a due date, if you discover that you need to change that due date, that's perfectly fine. Just send me an email indicating what the new date will be. Finally, you have to determine the weight of each activity so that the final course can be calculated. This should be done in terms of percentages so that at the bottom it equals 100%. I give you the possibilities for each of the activity options there, and you have to determine what those are. If you look at overall, if no one activity can be worth more than 25% of the grade, then in addition to the two that I provide, which can be worth up to 25%, participation and the group final ethical reflection, you would need to do at least two more that could add up to 25% to equal 100%. Here again, you can change the weight associated with your learning activities depending on how well you do. If, for example, you do poorly on one and you count at 25%, you can drop that down all the way to 0 and substitute something else in its place. If you do well on one and only counted at 10%, but it could be worth 15 or even 25%, then you can raise it up to that as well. My goal is to evaluate your best work, not your worst. The due date for your learning covenant, which you'll find on campus, is to be posted on February 11th. Here's the sample learning covenant that I provide. You can see each of the things that I'm talking about. You see learning objectives, and I don't list them for the course because they're on the syllabus. You see the two learning activities that I require in terms of group participation and group final ethical reflection. And all of those are listed there and more clearly on the syllabus under activity options itself. Again, all the activity evaluation criteria are there. And the particular activities can be worth up to 25%, but in this sample, they only chose to do it 20 and 25%. In terms of learning objectives, this is where you begin to identify your needs and turn them into learning objectives. So, for example, if you need to improve your writing skills, then you want to develop your writing and analytical skills. What's a good way of doing that? You do analysis of a lecture and you complete the report. Again, if you're okay with the evaluation criteria that's listed there, then the due date and how much it's going to count. And so you see each of the objectives there. And hopefully this will give you a clear sense of what I'm talking about for this. Now I know in some ways this is new to many people, and some folks will feel that there isn't much structure to this. The reality is there's a great deal of structure. It's just a different kind of structure. It gives you more freedom, more flexibility. If you're a procrastinator, you might want to recognize that and set the due dates earlier for your activities. But it does provide that kind of flexibility that I'm after, and also the opportunity for you to develop your own sense of learning and your own control over your learning throughout the semester. So I hope you'll enjoy this. I hope it will be meaningful to you. I think we'll have a good time together.